Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's October 2nd, 2022, and I'm here with my trusted partner, Steve. And Steve, it certainly feels like October in New Jersey today.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. I
No,
like this weather.
it's nice. Anyway, so thanks for joining us, everybody. We got a lot of good feedback from last week's show. And as always, our monologue is sponsored by Coriano Trucking. And I'll turn it over to Steve. You got the monologue this week.
Well, I had a couple topics I wanted to cover, but the two a concussion really. I need to lead off with that because that's
Okay.
front and center,
Yeah.
and I I'm incredulous as I think any any rational person would be to the fact that Tua Tagliavola was allowed back in the game. So he gets this concussion on Sunday that everybody knows he's concussed. I mean, he had the classic symptoms of holding his head and
He
wobbling and
did.
being, walked off the field by teammates and so on and so forth. So then you have a doctor hired by the Miami Dolphins that I just can't put my finger around it why this guy would allow Tua to even play the Thursday night, let alone Sunday. It's crazy. So Tua goes in Thursday, and guess what happens? Right, exactly what shouldn't have happened. And the reason I bring it up is because you and I are advocates of this. We've crushed the NFL on concussions, and I think of Mike Webster always as the poster child of you
Yes.
know. I mean, he probably had the worst case, if you will. But then when you have a Dave Duerson, Notre Dame, Chicago Bear, great
Junior
football player,
Seau.
Junior Seau killing themselves, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So the Dolphins fired the doctor. Why did they fire the doctor? Because they had to fire the doctor, right?
Exactly.
But the point again is the NFL. I just don't understand it, right? I mean, this was as simple a case as you don't play, right? You do not play for how long it takes.
Yeah.
And we talked about Tua. Everybody was saying, "Oh, he can't throw a deep ball." This, that, and the other thing gets off to a real good start. But I did make that comment last week. I said, "What's the one problem with Tua is that he's very fragile. Not fragile as fragile in the fact that he has injury history." And I
Yeah.
felt terrible for him to have to go through this. And the NFL, I just don't get this one. So I just wanted to bring this up as the opening story, if you will,
Yep.
and I'll leave it at that. So I'm
And
open.
I,
I'm
I,
open to is going to be okay down the road.
yeah. And I do too. I'm glad you actually started with that because it was. I mean, even to say it was shocking, even after last week, after he got concussed and he was walking back to the huddle, and then he started a wobble. I mean, there you go. There's your classic symptom, right? And where was this doctor then? And you're right. I didn't know that they fired him. I knew they were going to fire him, but
No,
I
they
didn't know they
fired him.
fired him right after it. But yes, we have beaten the NFL up on this, and this is going to be bad. If this turns out to be a career-ending injury for him, we're going to see lawsuits left and right, and rightfully so. And I wonder how complicit the Miami coach is in this. He obviously denies, that it was his decision or whatever to put him back in the game, but this was a bad look for the NFL. And you're right. I'm one of the guys that said I didn't think Tua had this kind of arm strength. I've kind of been, I loved him at Alabama, but the NFL is a whole different ball game. And you're right. He started off great this season. It's just really awesome, and just almost a tragic thing. I don't know whether or not he could even play one more game this season, and let's see what transpires going forward. Because you're right,
Right.
it really was shocking, Steve. And You brought
Well,
up the Seyaos and the Dewersons and all these other guys, and like right now, John Mackey, these guys, and the league just, it's all about the Benjamins, as you keep putting it, and you're right on it. And it was just a shocking thing to see. And I hope this isn't a career-ending injury for this guy.
right. Now back to the Miami head coach. And again, we have Josias Renee. Thank you so much for the nice compliment.
Oh, 2 thumbs up, Josias. Thank you.
Thank you so much. But back to Mike McDaniel, the coach of the Dolphins. Listen, you're the coach, and not that I'm giving him a pass, but I just want to say he's coaching the game. Okay, this is and there's a doctor there. Okay, so Tua is with the doctor. So if the doctor comes up to McDaniel and McDaniel goes to the doctor and say, "How is he?" and the doctor says, "No, you can go back in." Okay, I'm just saying. Listen. Okay, McDaniels is doing 9,000 things on the sideline trying to win a football game. So that's what he gets paid to do, right?
Yeah.
But if the doctor comes up to him and says, "You know what, he can go back in," McDaniels, that's going to go through one ear and out the other. But if Tua feels like he can go in, which again, he shouldn't even have to come to that. But I just wanted to clarify that the McDaniels, the doctor goes, "Hey, you can go back in," or Thursday night he can play. Okay, whatever the case may be. So if he says Thursday night he can play, who are you game planning with? Your quarterback Tua, even if he's not practicing, right?
Yep.
That type of thing. So it's just a bad look. It should never happen like that. And
it's just part of this whole Miami Dolphins, right? They're looking like the Washington Commanders. Like there's no ownership here that runs this program. It's nuts.
Right.
It's nuts.
And Mike Garvey just made a comment that the coach is a nerd.
He looks like the coach looks like an accounting professor.
He most certainly looks like a nerd, I must say. He is not the best looking guy on the he doesn't exude command on the side.
Oh God, he does. He looks like an accounting professor at the local college.
I don't begrudge him, but yes, that's so true.
All right. So anyway, let's move on. Good monologue, Steve. And it was really a topic I'm sure our audience was hoping for us to weigh in, and we weighed in because it was shocking to both of us.
All right. Thank you.
So let's move on to we'll get back to the NFL in a little bit. But I wanted to actually start with the Major League Baseball, and then there's so much going on. Great week this week for Aaron Judge. Hit his 61st home run, and I was lucky enough to be watching it at the time, and it was great. And like I said, this kid is nothing but class and humble, and it just couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And we still got 5 games left or something, Steve? 5, 6.
Right.
So we know he's going to break the record, and hopefully you and I will be witness to that as we're going to be attending this hopefully monumental game in not only Yankees history, but baseball history as he goes for 62. Thoughts?
Well, the thoughts are, so I went last Sunday night anticipating hopefully that, he would at least hit 61. And the electricity was there. It was a great night playing the Boston Red Sox. Unfortunately, only the rain came. It was an official game. Got to the 6th inning. Aaron Judge was set to lead off the bottom of the 7th if the game continued, but it didn't. So you could tell that he was pressing all week, okay? And I think the best thing for him was to actually get on the road and go to Toronto. So the fact that he hit the home run, the fact that he beat the Babe, right? So he's got the fastest 61. Right? And that was, to me, that's great. So I have this debate with guys at work that are, Bonds, 73, Sosa, McGuire. I'm like, to me, this is the record.
I agree.
Not only will it be the American League record officially, but I can't count Barry Bonds, and I won't. And I'm not counting Sammy Sosa. He's irrelevant to me. He doesn't even exist in my world.
I agree.
And Mark
Sosa, McGuire, Bonds.
And McGuire at 70. So I was thrilled for Aaron Judge. I was thrilled for his mother. It was a beautiful moment because Aaron Judge really he's a role model. And I'm
And
going to say
how classy was the Maris family to be
absolutely
supporting him through this whole thing and going to every single game. I think that was great
I
too.
think it's
That
great
was
too. But hopefully today, Jim and I are going to be leaving after the show to head to the Bronx, and hopefully we see it. I'd love to be part of history. We're
Me
sitting
too.
third base side, so we're not going to be in the bleachers with the chance of $1 million ball. But back to Judge's ball. I mean,
So you're telling me don't bring my glove to the game today.
if you can't catch a baseball, don't bring your glove, dude. Okay, but I felt terrible for that. I mean, it was funny, like initially, but then when you saw this guy sitting there going, "Oh my god," I'm like, sorry, dude, I'm not dropping that ball, dude. I can tell you that.
Yeah. No, but that was a great moment for sports and Aaron Judge. And
And
listen,
he's not going. I swear to God, folks, I don't want to hear it. He's not going anywhere. The Yankees are not letting him out the door.
I have
And I
been
don't think
saying that all
he
along.
doesn't want to go out the door. He loves being
I've been saying that all along, and now it's going to cost them big time. But there is no way they could let him walk out that door and go to San Francisco or wherever the other rumors are.
No.
And he will take less money to stay in New York for sure. I mean,
yeah, I mean, he's going to have more money than he could possibly spend in the rest.
Exactly. He's going to be a Madison Ave darling, going forward.
Thank God he got that gap fixed in his
Hey guys, one point. Shea Ohtani signing a contract yesterday.
Yeah,
is going to certainly keep him in the Bronx. That was your only alternative, was to bring him in here, and now that's gone.
Yeah. They signed him to a 1-year, $30 million deal or something, but because it's gonna take over a year to negotiate if they're gonna try to keep him in California. That's
he's staying in California. Word on the street is already Marino is looking to sell the team. He's had enough of it. So I agree with Garvey right now. That sounds right. 10 years, 400 million, 40 million a year. Yeah, I mean.
Yep. So listen, let's focus on something else, Steve. Right? This race with the Mets and the Braves is really literally coming down to the wire, and the Mets.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Mets have been sitting atop the NL East, nice and comfortably all year long, and in the past, 8 weeks, it's just completely flip-flop. And the Braves look really formidable. And, I guess, they're both obviously going to the playoffs, but, you get this little bye time and you don't have to play the wild card. So this is really, really awesome. And tonight is game 3 of this pivotal three-game series. So what's your take on the Mets?
I think it's like smoke and mirrors, okay? Meaning the Mets have now fallen out of first place. Ooh, right? Like they're in this like free fall or something, which is not even close to reality. The Mets have played great baseball. Okay, the Mets have been basically one of the top 3 teams in Major League Baseball all year long. The Braves got off to a somewhat slow start, so the Mets made up. It was like Secretariat in the Belmont. So around the first turn, the Mets had a nice comfortable lead. But the Braves are the defending world champs. They're young. They got pitching. They're loaded. And the Mets were like 35 something games over 500 like a month ago. And the Braves have been nipping at their heels. Why? Because the Braves have been playing outrageously good baseball. So to me, this series today, or the weekend, Mets Braves, is a prelude to what's going to happen in the playoffs. So yes, I mean, is it important to win your division? Yes. Why? Because you don't want to have to, play that extra couple games, because anything could happen there. But the Mets, listen, whether they will finish first or second, I think the Mets are going to make noise. It's obviously going to most likely be the Braves or Mets versus the Dodgers in the NL Championship Series.
Yep.
But I'm still with the Dodgers because of
the
Dodgers just set a franchise record. I think they won their 107th, 108th game.
Yep.
And again, this is a storied franchise. So
And here's my take on the Mets, Steve, is, yeah, they're a really solid team, but they are not a powerhouse offensive team. And Marte is a big loss for them.
It
He's
is.
out for a little bit. Alonso's kind of cooled off a little bit, but here's the thing with their pitching staff, and this is the first time we've seen DeGrom and Scherzer appear to be mortal. You know what I mean? And if that's the case, they're really the only two guys. Carrasco hasn't given you anything all year.
No,
Walker
Carrasco's been fine. Chris Bassett has been great. Chris
He's
Bassett on Oakland last year. I fell
Yeah.
in love with this guy.
right.
Okay, and he's a typical Oakland A player that is really good, whether pitcher, baseball player, whatever, hitter.
Taiwan Walker, he's really good too, but he's a hit or miss now. He could get crushed. He's kind of like a Derek Cole kind of guy.
No, yeah, I would say that. But when you say that DeGrom and Scherzer are mortal, if they have a hiccup here and there, big deal. I mean, Scherzer, the thing has to be healthy. So I'm more concerned about Scherzer being 37, 38 because he's had some nagging injuries this year, which could affect him in the playoffs. Okay, but DeGrom, again, you have to worry about the arm, but signs indicate he's loaded for bear for the next 3 weeks or a month or whatever it's going to take. But I don't discount the Mets. I think the Mets have had a great season in their future. Like I said when Cohen, and I'll remind the audience, when Cohen bought the team, what did I say? I said, I think the Mets are going to win the World Series twice in the next 6 years.
You did. You said at least once in the next 3
And
years.
they're trending very, very good.
I just don't know how powerful their offense is enough to go against the Dodgers and come out, or the Braves. That's just the X factor. I mean, we're committed Yankee fans. We get that, but we're all on board with Scherzer and DeGrom and Showalter and everything. This is coming down to the wire. Tonight's a big game for the Mets.
Right, but my concern about the Mets offense is I'm not concerned because they don't have to score 7-8 runs to keep pace with the Dodgers. If you got DeGrom and Scherzer on the mound and Bassett, it's most likely going to be 3-2, 4-3, and maybe at the most, because it's about pitching, right? I mean, and again, it gets back to the 220 averages, the 230 averages, this, that, and the other thing. I think these playoffs is all about pitching this year.
Yep. And like you said, I mean, the Dodgers just appear tough to beat. So this is great. Baseball, it's going into November this year for the first time kind of thing, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the way it is. It's about the
and this, but this time next week, and we may do the show Saturday instead of Sunday to wrap up the baseball season, but we'll know who's playing who and game on. We'll see how it goes.
Yep.
So, Steve, let's jump right back to the NFL. First of all, our picks made a little redemption last week for myself. Anyway, I was 2 out of 3. Surprising New Orleans, Carolina. I took the Saints. They're playing today against the Vikings in London, so there actually is an NFL game going on.
It's 13-7 with 11 minutes in the third quarter. The Vikings are winning.
But so I don't know how you did last week, but
I went 2 for 3 too. Hello.
Okay.
No, I took it on the chin with the Chargers, even though I said that Herbert, was banged up a little bit. Jacksonville coming into LA and laying 38 on them. But San Diego, the Chargers are in a world of hurt right now. They really,
they are.
They're starting to Bosa's out and so on and so forth.
That's a big loss for them.
It's a huge loss. It's a
big
huge
loss. Yep.
Yep.
So anyway, you're right. And listen, the Bills are, they took it on the chin as well, which was, the unbeatable Bills. But another big loss for the Patriots, and it's going to be a long year for the Patriots now that Mac Jones is out and so forth. So, the competition in the AFC all of a sudden becomes wide open again, right? It's.
Yeah, listen, the Bills lost again. Nobody's going 16-0 that I can see. So
agreed. We know that.
everybody's going to lose. I mean, the Bills will most likely finish, like 13-4 or something along those. They'll win the division by like 5 games, probably.
I got you.
But who do you like today?
So I don't know. It's when I say, "Oh, this is an easy week," I got Cleveland at Atlanta, and I don't know whether to believe in Atlanta or just continue not to believe in the Browns. But I'm taking the Falcons today in my first game.
Right.
Your Dallas Cowboys, after an impressive win Monday night against the Giants, taking on the Washington Commanders, and I just can't see them. They're in Dallas today, I think, right?
They are.
So they should walk over the Commanders because I'm not a buyer of Carson Wentz, as you know. And my third game is Tennessee at Indianapolis. You and I both had some really positive things to say about Indianapolis. But I think Tennessee, they got off to a kind of a rough start, and Derrick Henry's going to start lighting it up at some point. So I like Tennessee over Indianapolis on the road today. Those are my 3 games.
All right. Zach Wilson is set to return for the Jets today on the road at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is favored by 3 points. I'm going to take the Steelers at home here. I don't foresee Zach Wilson lighting it up today. I just don't see it. The other game I like a lot is I do like the Cowboys at home against the Redskins because Cooper Rush. You and I watched the game together on Monday.
We did.
And Cooper Rush. I'm not saying Cooper Rush is going to supplant Dak Prescott when Prescott comes back. But as far as a backup quarterback, Cooper Rush has been on the Cowboys for 6 years. There's a reason for that. Now
and he was cut by the Giants, by the way.
Right. So I'm telling you, he's been cut back and forth. And again, I don't think it's because, they didn't like him or anything like that. It has a lot to do with other factors. But Cooper Rush is back. And he's got command out there.
You're absolutely
We're not
right.
asking him to throw it 45 times and complete 35 passes. No,
He really appeared to be in command.
Right. So the thing is with the running game of Pollard and Elliott, and if the line and I tell you what, the Cowboys putting Jason Peters, who they signed at 40 years old, at guard as opposed to tackle, I think is a great move. I think it's a really great move. Just get my first round pick, Tyler Smith, has held his own actually a little bit. He had a holding penalty on Monday, but okay.
Yeah.
And the Cowboy defense. So Micah Parsons was somewhat limited last week. He had an illness during the week. He had pressures, but I think the Cowboy defense will show up today at home. I like the Cowboys there. So hopefully they continue their winning ways.
You're right. The Cowboys are leading the league in sacks, so their defense is kind of keeping them, and it doesn't put all that pressure on Cooper Rush to win the game solely on his own kind of
Absolutely.
thing. So that's good.
And then the third pick I like, I'm going to take the Chicago Bears on the road at the Giants. I think the Giants, Daniel Jones played okay. It wasn't Daniel Jones' fault Monday night, not in the slightest. He had the most QB pressures he's ever had in his 3-4 years, whatever he's been.
Yeah, Evan Neal got some work to do.
Evan Neal got schooled. But the Giants losing Sterling Shepard absolutely hurts him bad. Now, Kenny Golladay is supposed to start today. I mean,
he's a malcontent, though.
I understand that, but you know what? You're saddled with him because that's Dave Gettleman's Christmas present to all the Giant fans. They can't cut him because if they do cut him, it's going to kill your salary cap.
Oh,
so I don't even understand why he would give this guy a deal that might be worthy of a Julio Jones in his prime,
or Justin Jefferson,
or a Lynn Swan, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with the Giants falling back to earth again, and I'll take the Bears on the road.
Okay, but you're right. Just an observation, and I've been all in on Daniel Jones. And you're right. I think Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the league, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
But Daniel Jones didn't do much to get me off the bandwagon that everybody else seems to be on about he needs to go. Yeah, I know. That's funny. That's funny.
Now, one observation I'll make about Daniel Jones from Monday night is he doesn't, to me, doesn't have touch. Like he fires the ball in. Like I just don't see like when touch is necessary as a quarterback. You do not have to throw the ball 100 miles an hour, 10 yards away or 15 yards away. But I get it. He's pressured.
Tell John Elway that,
Right. But the point is, to me, that's what's lacking from him is like flutter passes and things like that. Like I don't want to kill him. But again, I'm going to go on record. He will not be the Giants quarterback next year.
I'm not so sure.
They're not paying him.
They're only going to have to
paying him. I'm sorry.
They're only going to have to franchise, and if Dable thinks he's got potential, then he's staying.
Listen, he may be franchised for one more year because maybe the quarterback that they want out of this coming draft, or via trade or whatever it may be, whoever they deem right. He may get franchised for one more year, but that's it. My point is, they're not signing him to a 7-8 year deal. It's just not happening.
Come on, they want Arch Manning, right? They're gonna suck for Arch for the next 3 years.
That's too long. No, the NFL is win now.
I know.
I'm sorry. Listen, I'm sorry. Arch is too far out there.
And you know what?
They can't possibly do that. Now, the Jets may be in a position to get Arch Manning when Zach Wilson was trending to shit the bed. Okay, so don't be surprised if the Jets in 3 years are in the Arch Manning sweepstakes.
But the Giants are going to win too many games this year to get a top quarterback, so they're going to be stuck.
I don't know about that. I think the Giants are going to stick that they're going to win 5. And if they win 5, that's a top 5 pick, I think.
A lot of whispers. Giants want Lamar Jackson. They have a lot of money next year.
One of my best friends, our golf guru, George Breen, brought that scenario up to me this past week. He said,
"Will not happen.
I want Lamar Jackson, and why can't we go trade him?" I said, "Well, he's going to be franchise number 1 for next year, so you're not getting him next year. But if you franchise Daniel Jones and Lamar Jackson gets franchised, who's to say the Giants can't give up 3 first round, but whatever the price tag is."
John Harbaugh is not going to let Lamar Jackson walk out of Baltimore after he's built everything around this kid. And
John Harbaugh is not going to have the say to keep him after his franchise year. I think he's going to go to Miami because that's where he's from. He wants to go back there. He does. So I think 2 more years. But again, as much as I love Lamar Jackson, he's the running quarterback. I mean, he's not going to be Tom Brady at 45 because he just physically won't be able to do it.
That's right. I agree. So let's stick with that, Steve. Let's move on to the NCAA. And I wanted to bring this up because you and I have both been all in on this kid, Sam Hartman, who just came back from an injury. He's tearing it up. Is he one of those quarterbacks you're talking about? That's a top 5 pick?
Well, right now, I mean, going into the season, no, he wasn't even considered a first round pick. But he came on the radar for me last year. I watched Wake Forest had a real good year last year.
They did.
And the reason was Sam Hartman. And I watched him, I think I watched him in maybe 3 or 4 games. And I couldn't have been more impressed with his command, his touch, his like I was this guy not like considered like an all-American candidate, right?
Yeah.
So he started the season. He had something was wrong. I don't even know if it was an injury. It might have been an illness or something. But Sam Hartman, folks, I'm telling you, from Wake Forest, you get a chance, go see him. Go watch him on TV. This guy is rapidly moving up the charts. We talked about Alex Van Dyke of Miami last week, who's rapidly descending the charts. So it all depends on, how you finish the year, your Senior Bowl and all that stuff in the workouts. But I would take Sam Hartman if I was in need of a quarterback. I like Sam Hartman.
Well, I mean, I think we both know that Bryce Young will be the first quarterback, right? And
Most likely, or
CJ Stroud possibly the second quarterback, and that they could flip flop. You know, they could flip flop depending on the strategy of who gets that first pick and who's more of need of a quarterback, and you know, can the coach adapt to this running style, which is the new NFL prototype, right? But I think this kid Bryce Young is just so composed, and he would be my first quarterback off the board, no question.
Yeah, he got banged up yesterday a little bit, and but yeah, I am not wavering on Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young should be the number one quarterback to go. And if I was in need of a quarterback and I'm the general manager of an NFL team next year, I'm not even debating CJ Stroud. I'm taking Bryce Young. I'm not knocking CJ Stroud, but he could turn into Justin Fields. So Justin Fields is kind of struggling right now a little bit, but we've seen it before from the Dwayne Haskins and so on coming out of Ohio State, right? I'm not knocking it. They can throw 50 touchdowns all they want at Ohio State, but the learning curve in the NFL is you got to have it up here as well as here.
Yep. So, you know, there wasn't many upsets yesterday. I mean, although you did bring up this morning before the show that Texas A&M got crushed again.
Yep.
So things aren't looking good down for Jimbo.
Well, you know, Jimbo, had the number one recruiting class in all the land coming into this season, and he didn't like it that Nick made some disparaging comments that Texas A&M bought of all the players. Well, I tell you what, listen, Jimbo Fisher is I'm not knocking this guy's a smart football coach. He's won a national championship, right? The guy is, very, he's the right guy for the job. But I like something about him. I don't root for him. So when Texas A&M takes it on the chin, same thing with Brian Kelly yesterday when LSU came up short.
They won last night.
I know, but I'm just saying he's struggling there. This is not like, Brian Kelly thought he was walking into, the juggernaut that was Coach Ed Orgeron's team that won the national championship 2-3 years ago. Kelly has a lot. Now, listen, Kelly is walking into that cesspool that we talked about too. So, I can't knock him yet. But
listen, I hope
I'm not rooting for him anymore. The way he exited.
Either am I, and he could have all the great times he wants on his yachts because now he's got unlimited funds. But he's going to regret blowing up his legacy at Notre Dame. I really believe that.
And again, I don't begrudge him for taking the LSU job, not in the slightest. The way he did it, I can't root. I was so disappointed in the way he did this. The fact that somebody had to coax him once he got back, once he landed in Louisiana, and thank God somebody got in his ear and said, "You know what, Coach? Maybe you should get on the plane and go back and face your players and be a man and tell them that you're about to abandon them for money. How about you do that, Coach?" And he did. Okay, but he did it, and it was so awkward and embarrassing. And he did it for like 8 minutes, and out the door he went back on his leadership.
Yeah.
So,
but here was an interesting fact, and I've been one of our listeners, Walt Hahn, big Arkansas guy, and Arkansas is really, they've turned that program around. It's really impressive. But they went up against Alabama. Nick Saban is 16-0 against Arkansas, which that's unbelievable. I mean, that's unbelievable.
I don't think it's unbelievable. I don't.
16-0.
Yeah, but this is not Arkansas from the 70s, Lou Holtz and Frank Broyles and the storied Arkansas teams, right? I mean, they were national champions in the 50s with Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones, right? Nick Saban has been at Alabama for a long time, right? It's not surprising Alabama rolls Arkansas every time. And again, the coach is doing a great job there. Arkansas is relevant again.
Yep.
And I'm not knocking them off. I'm just saying, when you play Alabama, I mean, it was like Notre Dame in the national championship game, right?
Yep.
Against them. You knew they were going to get rolled.
I just thought that was a unbelievable stat. I at least thought it 16-0 against anybody is something to.
Yeah,
But that's Nick Saban and that's Alabama football.
that's absolutely right.
But Steve, there's something I wanted to bring up because you and I have brought this young man up, and we have a personal tie. We played with his father, and he's the starting center of Ohio State, Luke Whippler. And I just saw a couple things. His father sent me over this thing. I don't know what Pro Football Focus is. It's like a scouting combine, right, for college players. And they have Luke Whippler as the #1 center in the entire country. And how proud are we of this? He's a St. Joe's kid, and he's such a great kid. We've had him on the show, and I've already texted his father saying, pass the message on to Luke when he's a #1 draft pick in next April. He's going to be on our show first, and I couldn't be happier for him. He's really.
There's no question. I mean, Robert Whippler is who we're talking about, the father, and he's your class. And but I had the opportunity to play with Dad in baseball. I played freshman varsity baseball, so I had 2 years with Bobby, and Bobby was my tight end. I had the pleasure of 1 year throwing to him. And we became a bond. And our sister is friends and so on and so forth because she went to IHA. But back to Luke, couldn't be prouder, right? I mean, we're talking, and again, we're not trying to be biased here, that he's genuinely a smart kid, a great kid, and we couldn't be happier for this kid's success. And, I just hope Luke stays healthy. And, God, it'd be, it's awesome. We always thought he'd be first, second round pick anyway, because when he got the starting center job at Ohio State, right, pretty quickly, right? He had to wait for 1 year for graduation of the incumbent, but it's great. And the Dallas Cowboys could really use a nice center. So Luke,
the New York Giants, how great was that?
Hope you pack your bags to Big D, Jerry World.
I think I wouldn't be disappointed if we took him with our #1 draft pick if we don't have to get a quarterback. That's how great this kid is.
It's unfortunate you need a quarterback.
I know. Anyway, so again, we're a little biased, but we give Luke PR because we're very familiar with him. He's a great kid, and It's just a great story in college football.
Congratulations, Luke. Keep it up. And again, Ohio State crushed Rutgers yesterday. We, that was no surprise. The score was exactly what anybody thought it would be.
We've talked about this verbatim with, Rutgers can being in the Big Ten. They're not at that level where they can compete with an Ohio State. And
nobody's expecting them to. And again, the thing is, as long as they have 4 wins, 5 wins in the Big Ten, they need to beat the Northwesterns. They need to beat the Illinois, the Indianas, that type of thing, right?
That's not impressive enough, though, Steve.
No, listen, I mean, that's impressive from where Rutgers was. I'm telling you. Nobody's expecting them to, listen, last year they played Michigan in the Big House, and they almost won that game. They held their own like big time, okay? But to me, they can't compete with Ohio State and Michigan. I'm not even expecting them to. Even Penn State,
and we
should always win by 3 touchdowns.
We have reasons why we want Rutgers to do good.
Of course we do. Absolutely.
Right? I mean, the St. Joe's ties that are there, the Bergen Catholic ties that are there.
Right. Our nephew is, a coach in baseball. I mean, it's the State University of New Jersey.
Yep.
It looks like 5 and 7. We'll do it again.
What's that?
Looks like 5 and 7. We'll get another bowl bid again.
You could be.
What for Rutgers?
Yeah.
Well, they did last year, but that was that was again. There's so many of these freaking bowls.
I know.
But a couple teams.
5 and 7 is
out,
ridiculous.
So it was an unusual circumstance.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 and 7 is ridiculous.
I'm glad that we brought those points up because it was. It showed the dominance of Ohio State, that they're one of the elite teams, and would love to see them match up against Auburn or Georgia because those are the 3 teams to beat. So,
Well, to be honest, to me, the biggest test or litmus test was last week. I mean, Iowa came to Rutgers, and it was a Saturday night game, I believe, and Iowa won 27-10. So my point is, 5-10 years ago, Iowa coming to Rutgers, the score would have been 66-3. Okay, so they are making strides.
okay.
Okay,
Good.
so again, I can't stress that enough. Like, they have to beat the teams that are equivalent to them, maybe slightly better. To me, that's the litmus test. And
Okay.
then year by year, if they keep getting the recruits, then one day we can talk about maybe knocking off the highs.
Okay. And listen, let's stick around because Steve and I we talk about the talent levels in New Jersey, starting to become on par with the Floridas, Texas, California kids. And there's this is big time football, and I actually got a chance to go see St. Joe's play, our alma mater, in Giant Stadium Friday night. It was like a double header for New Jersey, the big marquee games,
Right,
and they won big.
right,
But like we say, these guys, the Bergen Catholics, the Boscos, these guys all have 4 or 5 Division I players on their rosters, and it's just great football. And Don Bosco beat St. Peter's after St. Peter's beat St. Joe. So we keep joking and say, these guys play an SEC type schedule week after week.
right.
And Steve, I texted back and forth with one of our former teammates from Little League, Steve Caravello, out in California,
Right.
and he's well aware too. He keeps an eye on this, going, and he actually made the quote to me, and he goes, "They play an SEC schedule," and I go, "It's great."
There's no
And so
question about it.
they won Friday night, and Bosco won. So this sets up a big. And I know Rob has some ties to Bergen Catholic, and that was Steve and I's rival when we were in high school.
Not
Right.
anymore. Not anymore.
Not
Okay.
anymore. What?
Not anymore.
Anyway,
So I'm a free agent.
Okay, well this sets up for one of the biggest games in New Jersey, certainly of that weekend, maybe of the year. And you're talking about teams that they play this competition that's so fierce that nobody's going undefeated in this league. And so October 15th at St. Joe's, Bergen Catholic, big high school football game. And unless
Right.
it's my funeral, how are we missing this game? We're not.
Hey guys, you want to
Correct.
comment about the news last night?
What
See
news?
the big news last night? Paramus
No.
Catholic. They got caught. What do you call that? Getting a player. They got caught recruiting.
Okay.
So they got
Not the
suspended
first?
for the. They got suspended for the year and 2 years probation.
Wow.
Well, the coach of Paramus Catholic is left Northern Ireland, and he did a great job there. Northern Ireland's lost in the state final to Irvington last year, and they're the team that beat Ramapo after Drew Gibbs had passed away.
Yeah.
And his name is Russo, and I believe this is his first year. So I'm not going to say I'm surprised, because he's got St. Joe's, he's got Bosco, he's got Bergen, he's got Del Barton, he's got St. Peter's.
DePaul.
So this is not the first time it's happened, but he got his hand very early caught in the cookie jar, and them's
And
let's-
the
it was
rules,
crazy.
and you're gonna
Well,
it's gonna set back Paramus Catholic.
But let's let our listeners know why this is kind of relevant, because they had Rashawn Gary, they had Jabril Peppers, they had NFL talent at that
Correct.
level, and now they're going up against these other powerhouses. And you're right. So this is going to set that program back a few years, which got raided when Rick Partridge left and joined Harbaugh's staff at Michigan.
Right.
But that's kind of why it's relevant, Rob, and I'm glad that you brought that up.
And the kid was from Belleville. That's a hell of a commute just to want to get a little advantage of playing football, right? Belleville to Paramus is not was it a 45-minute ride? each way.
That's not the worst, believe me. Bosco had kids on that national championship team from upstate New York that would take a train for about an hour and 20 minutes. And somebody would pick them up. Somebody would pick them up in Suffolk every single morning. They had kids from New York City. They had kids from down the shore who would make the pilgrimage. So Belleville's not bad. The good thing about Belleville is that's where Uncle Junior lived in The Sopranos.
one more thing, guys. One more thing. I kind of admire the way like Don Bosco just crushed Bergen like what, a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
Right. That coach for Don Bosco is a guy who kind of like went through the whole ringer to get where he is, and he had to kind of admire that.
Right. Yeah, Dan Sabella. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, he was I think he was a small school coach for a while. Then finally got the big break in Paramus where he did very well, and then it ascended him to the higher level. But I kind of admire a smaller school coach working the ranks and getting that big job.
Yeah, no, he hasn't disappointed the Don Bosco faithful. That's for sure.
You know? No, Dan Sabella is an outstanding coach. Dan Sabella was the head coach at Paramus High School for probably 10 years at least. His biggest player that I remember from Paramus High School was John Robertson, the quarterback. And Robertson was a fantastic high school quarterback. Robertson went to Villanova and had a tremendous career at Villanova. Okay. So Sabella's gotten Paramus to the finals. They never won it, but did a great job. So he went to Paramus Catholic after Paramus. And he was there for a couple of years, and he was starting to build this. And Paramus, that was the last time Paramus Catholic was competitive, right? So he took over for Partridge, who went on to the Michigan thing, like you referenced. Rashawn Gary and Jabril Peppers were basically, recruited to Paramus Catholic loosely, right? So the fact is now Sabella is offered the job when Bosco, botches this with Greg Toll and the way they handled that by saying we don't want you back, Stan Sabella became the number one logical choice to replace him. And Sabella slowly but surely is bringing Bosco back to the level. So that win, kicking Bergen's ass last week, was, I think, a real bonanza for Bosco's program. And let's see if this propels Bosco, because Bosco and Bergen are playing in the States again. And Bergen's going to absolutely remember this loss.
So listen, we could go on and on with high school football in New Jersey, but we love it, and it's just so competitive, and it's just great to watch. But St. Joe's Bergen game, October 15th, is the marquee matchup.
Correct.
So Steve, let's move on to our random points of interest, which of course is sponsored by Lynch Toyota, who was as gracious as could be last week, hosting the Niagara boys up at his ranch up in Narragansett, Rhode Island. And thanks again, Mike. It was you never disappoint, and you're as classy as they come. So I was just going to mention one quick thing, Steve, that finally, because you and I, even though we used to watch it when we were little, the NFL has finally done away with the Pro Bowl because it was absolutely unwatchable. It was so non-competitive. So that's finally off the table. But don't think the NFL is going to just let that go away. They're going to come up with some creative Pro Bowl skills competition, and they'll make just as much money as if the Pro Bowl itself was being played.
Well, I can't say. I think the last Pro Bowl I watched was probably like 1993, 94, maybe.
30 years ago.
And I haven't tuned into one since. And if you think I'm tuning into the Pro Bowl Skills Challenge, not happening. So I don't care what they do. It is so irrelevant. I could care less.
The young kids of today worship these kids, and they'll watch it anyway.
I fully understand that.
Yep.
But this kid, he don't worship that.
Yeah. Here's one other thing I gotta put this out because I don't know if you've seen it yet. On Netflix, there's a documentary on Nolan Ryan. I think it's called Facing Nolan. and it's an hour and 45 minutes of just incredible footage. I mean, we have always worshipped this guy, Nolan Ryan, and
I've heard of him. Yeah,
he's a classy guy. And
he
when
was
you
a
look
pitcher,
at his,
right?
huh?
Pitcher, Nolan Ryan, pitcher.
Yeah, he was a pitcher.
He was a
Yeah.
pitcher, right? Yeah.
But what a backstory with all of this, and after he left the Mets and signed with Gene Autry and the Angels, and then the guy just kept going. I mean, we talk about Tom Brady at 45. Nolan Ryan pitched until he was 46 years old and threw a no-hitter who was 45 years old.
Right.
So he had 7 no-hitters, and his idol was Sandy Koufax. And he said, it's hard to believe that, my career, people talk about me in the same vein as Sandy Koufax, but you have got to watch this, Steve. Our brother Tom turned me onto it, and I watched it, and it's a Monahan and Ebert 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, no question about it. Listen, Nolan Ryan never won a World Series.
He won one with the Mets.
I know, but I'm talking, we all know that, but I'm just saying going forward, he never won. I don't think he won a Cy Young. No, that's what it was. I'm sorry.
He didn't win a Cy Young.
He did win? I don't know about
that. No, he did not win.
He did not. Yes, that's my point. How utterly nuts that is.
Right? It's nuts.
But Nolan Ryan, here's a true story, folks. So my first game ever at Yankee Stadium was in 1973, and I was 8 years old. And it was a twilight doubleheader against the California Angels. And our father used to have season tickets for the Yankees, and we sat behind the dugout. We sat literally 10 rows or whatever it was behind the dugout. And it was 5:30 in the afternoon, and the sun and the shadows. Back in the day, the shadows would envelop home plate. And the sun would be on the pitcher's mound for about maybe an inning and a half, right, till the sun moved. So we're sitting there, and number 30 takes the mound for the California Angels. And again, I'm 8 years old. I don't know much. I don't know any. All I heard about was Nolan Ryan could really throw a fastball. I remember my father saying, "Where do you see this?"
Oh,
I mean, jaw dropping.
And they were talking about this with the jugs gun and measuring it. Back then, he was throwing at 100.7.
Right.
And they go, if the technology today was, he'd be throwing 107 miles an hour.
Right.
That's how dominant. But
so
Steve, my
point is, I've been a Nolan Ryan guy, forever. And when he was on, he was unhittable, obviously, with his 7 no-hitters. His strikeouts, he's got over 5,000 strikeouts, I think 5,600, something like that.
And here was the funny line of the thing. It was they were interviewing Art Howe, and Art Howe said he had 5,700 strikeouts, and I wasn't one of them. And the reason I wasn't one of them is because I never faced them. Great line by Art Howe.
Oh, that's great.
You got to watch it.
That's right.
Last random point. It's kind of tragic. This soccer game yesterday in Indonesia, almost 200 people got trampled to death. I mean, and we talk about the soccer and the hooligan thing. It's kind of crazy. It's crazy.
I don't know what to say. It's nuts.
I don't either.
It's crazy. You're right.
It's
absolutely crazy. 120 people could be stampeded.
My goodness.
For what? I mean, for what?
A soccer game.
I know. That's how it's crazy.
And I'll have a conversation with our friend Diego, our resident soccer expert. But this is no joke. This is Sports with Mono and Mono saying this is a tragedy that just I needed to bring up. And,
right. It reminds me kind of the Who concert in Riverfront, in Cincinnati years ago. But whether one person gets trampled, it's unacceptable.
Way too many. So let's go on to our notable passing, Steve. And one of them I know you're familiar with, Gavin Escobar, former tight end for the Dallas Cowboys.
Another young guy, man.
Another young guy in a rock climbing accident, right? We just saw this with somebody, I think it was Luke Dawson or somebody, right? Something like that.
Oh.
But God, he was 31 years old.
Yeah.
I mean,
Listen, he was a second-round draft pick by the Cowboys out of San Diego State. Not even 10 years ago. It has to be, right? I mean, it could be maybe 10 max. But it's tragic. You see, the thing I know about, we're born and we all die, correct? I can guarantee you this, folks. I am not dying by rock climbing. You know why? Because I've never got rock climbing.
Exactly.
I'm not doing it under any circumstances.
Well, that must be some adrenaline thing.
Listen,
that
people, yeah, absolutely.
I could certainly back that up and say, I will not be a notable passing on our show because I was rock climbing.
100%. Death, taxes, and that, folks.
And Steve, one other guy.
R.I.P. Gavin Escobar. I was
big time.
I didn't like that news.
And one other notable passing, and I'm sure they'll bring this up when we're in Yankee Stadium today. Former Yankee Hector Lopez.
Absolutely.
And Hector Lopez was 93. Hector Lopez was the first minority manager in the AAA system in baseball. And I vividly remember our father telling us Hector Lopez was one hell of an outfielder for the New York Yankees.
Yes,
and that's notable to us.
Right, right. Our father, when we talk about the our Hall of Fame grading, our father, if he liked a ball player, wow, we're like, oh, hey, he actually likes somebody, right? But Hector Lopez was one of those guys. Hector Lopez, he's a Yankee, true and true, really. Beloved, by his teammates, beloved by the coaches, beloved by the organization, and again, 93. So when a Hector Lopez can live a beautiful life at 93, and just previously we talked about Gavin Escobar.
There'll absolutely be a moment of silence for him in Yankee Stadium today.
Right, but my point is, it's just so tragic that Gavin Escobar is gone at 31 years old.
Anyway, so R.I.P. Hector Lopez. Steve, well, thanks again for your insight. I'm glad that you brought the Tua thing up as the monologue. And folks, please send us comments at sportswithmono@gmail.com again. And we continuously thank you for your support. And we'll be back with you next week. We may be doing Saturday show. So we'll keep you posted about that. But there's a lot going on. Enjoy the Sunday. Hopefully the rain holds off for us in the Bronx, and we'll catch up to you folks next week.
And I just want to say something. We kind of had advertised about hopefully doing our live remote on the 30th outside of the Meadowlands. At times there's just communication issues. There's things that that are out of our control, if so to speak. But the point I just wanted to bring up is, it's stuff like this is going to happen as the show develops. I thank Rob. Jim and I thank Rob for producing the show, and Rob was doing his best to coordinate this, and it's going to happen, right? We just wanted you to know that down the road, stuff like this is going to happen.
Yep. Because this is what we love to do. We love this show, so we enjoy your Sunday afternoon on the couch watching games. We'll go into the Yankee game and see Judge.
And one thing for Michael Garvey, I will not refer to them as the Commanders. To me, they will always be the Washington Redskins.
And one real last quick thing relating to Mike Garvey. He's down in Naples, and it was just a terrible situation what happened with Florida this week. And we send all our best to all the Floridians down there.
You better believe it. Absolutely.
Yep. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye.